Hello, and welcome to this late afternoon taste challenge. I have two American blended whiskey products, and this is Beam's 8 Star, and it was introduced in 1976. And I think we know who makes it. It says Kentucky. I'm trying to keep a straight face. It says Kentucky Springs Distilling Company, Frankfort and Claremont, Kentucky. I don't know what the 8 Star means. You might be a past master of Kabbalah or something. I don't know. You might know what it means, but I don't. Usually, if you find a fresh bottle, it'll have a bright gold label. This has faded. Strange that the red didn't fade, though. I don't understand that. Maybe over time, it might not have been exposed to light, because red fades so fast. But it's just because age, just age and exposure to air, the gold might have faded and turned kind of silverish. Thinking that might be it, but I don't care. All right, anyway, I'm just curious. I guess I do care a little bit. Okay, it's a liter bottle. It was $9. I asked the guy, so I don't see a price tag for this at Star, legendary liquor store, gas station, actually a convenience store, but everybody knows what it really is, on Louisiana Highway 23 in Gretna, Louisiana. I said, this bottle has no tag. And he looked it over, and I had to clean it up. It looks a lot better than when I saw it on the shelf, believe me. Believe me, you. Believe you, me. He's like, for you, my friend, I'll sell it for $9. $9. Well, I took the bait. 75% grain neutral spirits, 25% straight whiskey. Today, if you buy a fresh bottle, this is a 2014 bottle. If you buy a fresh bottle, it's 80% grain neutral spirits and only 20% straight whiskey, and only aged 2 years. So they've downgraded it. So my bottle is at least 4 years old, and it's 25% straight whiskey. Obviously, it's called Beam's 8 Star. I think we can figure out what the straight whiskey in there is. But I already got a comment today from somebody saying, I bought that stuff and I tried it, and it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I said, see, that's the thing. You actually try it. Don't just say, oh, that's junk. Have you tried it? Oh, well, no. Interesting. We had this discussion about, here's Seagram's 83 American. Seagram's 83. The actual name of this product is Seagram's 83. What is Seagram's 83? American. They're very clever, these guys. It says, right, American whiskey with natural flavors and caramel coloring. 1888. Yeah. I'm sorry, 1883. That wouldn't make much sense to say 88. 1883. No. More clever positioning. Well, if this thing would focus, I'd be happy. There we go. 83 proof. Okay, look, let's get down to it. You ready to get down to it? Seagram's 83. Seagram's built a distillery in 1883 in Canada. I don't remember the province. I guess it was Ontario, but I know that. Okay. On the 50th anniversary of that distillery opening, 1933, they introduced Seagram's 83, like a harkening back to 50 years ago when they opened the distillery. And it was, and it still is, a popular product in Canada. I've never seen it in the United States. They also make Golden Wedding and these other odd products that we never see. Okay. But I've had Canadians tell me that Seagram's 83 is enjoyable and whatnot. Well, years ago, like 7 years ago, no, 8 years ago, I think, Sazerac of New Orleans bought a bunch of brands from Diageo. Now, Diageo had bought the brands from Seagram's when they decided to exit the liquor business in the year 2000. The people that own Seagram said, well, we're getting out of the liquor business. Kind of a strange thing to do, but they did it. Okay, so Diageo bought a whole bunch of stuff. And then after a while, they said, we don't want all this stuff. We want a lot of it, like Crown Royal, Johnny Walker, that kind of stuff. But other stuff we don't want. So they start, I guess, putting the word out if you want to buy it, So Sazerac said, we'll take it. And they made a deal. And Sazerac bought Seagram's 83 and Seagram's VO and all kind of stuff. And so it came under their control. And they decided to introduce a Seagram's 83 for the U.S. market. And that's where this came about. So the name is the same, but the products are not the same. I mean, they are. They use grain, mostly corn, obviously, malted barley, rye, probably a whole lot of rye in Canada. But otherwise, they're not the same. So if you live in Canada and you've had Seagram's 83, you never had this one. And if you live in the United States and you had this one, you never had the Canadian one. If you haven't been, you get it across back and forth. Okay, so the appearance, well, actually, this one is copper, just barely though. And this one's a little bit more amber. Why do I know that Seagram's 83 is actually a distilled spirit specialty, what they call a DSS on the cartons? If you get a carton of liquor, these come in 6-packs. The 750s come in 12s. It'll put that on the carton, but it doesn't say it nowhere on the bottle does it say distilled spirit specialty. But that's what it is. It's a liquor of some type that does not comply with any type. In other words, it doesn't fit any category for some violation reason or whatever. So it's in a catch-all category called distilled spirit specialty. My thinking is that this one uses too much natural flavor. You can add natural flavor to an American blended whiskey. That's not a problem. But if you read the regulation, it said not to exceed 2.5% of the volume. Well, maybe they decided to exceed that percentage. No problem. All they had to do was call it a DSS, register it as such, and sell it. Now, see, the name of the product is Seagram's 83, not Seagram's 83 whiskey. You notice that? It says Seagram's 83 American, and then in very small type, whiskey with natural flavors and caramel color. That's the law. It has to have what they call a distinguishing name, meaning it distinguishes it from other products. So the distinguishing name is Seagram's 83. Maybe American is or is not part of that. I don't know. I'm saying it's probably just Seagram's 83. Secondly, it has to have a detailed description of what it is. It has a detailed description. American whiskey with natural flavors and caramel color. That's your detailed description. Thirdly, it is not allowed to have an age statement. Now that part I don't understand, but it is not allowed to have an age statement. Plus, they don't require it to show the blend ratio, or it may not be allowed. I don't remember that part. So there's nothing on here showing 80-20, 75-25, or any of that. And you don't ever see that on any distilled spirit specialty. So obviously that's not part of the protocol. So I didn't make the law. Oh, it's got like a filigree on it. Like you can feel like it's elevated, like a texture to it. Letters. Okay, anyway, I don't think it really caught on. It's still made, but my local store pulled all of it. Not laughing, but I am laughing. But but they recently yanked it off the shelves and sold it for a discount. Hey, well, no use keeping it on the shelf if nobody buys it. I bought it as a curiosity piece. I mean, I thought, well, look at this thing. You know, my friend David said he liked it. I'm kind of favorable towards it in a sense. But that's the difference. Is there really a major difference ultimately? No, not really. They're both blended whiskeys. This one with natural flavors and caramel color. The Beams A-Star very well may have natural flavors and caramel color, but it doesn't exceed the 2.5, you see. So it might be like this one is this much and this one is this much. See what I'm saying? It's like just little pinpricks per volume, but it is a difference, so that's the story on that. Do most consumers notice this? I seriously doubt that, especially since they stick them right in there with the other technically correct class that they're trying to mimic. The gin with natural flavors, it's going to be stuck with the gin. The vodka with natural flavor, then we stuck with the vodka. The bourbon with natural flavor, we stuck with the bourbon. So it's all be on the shelf with the other products, and so the consumer is not going to notice that. You say, I'm going to court. I'm getting a lawyer. Well, you're going to lose. You will lose. Because what the court is going to tell you is that, hey, that's not our problem, and it's not the company's problem. You could have very easily read the label. And considering most people have the internet these days and live on their phone, don't even look at the road when they drive, any reasonable person would understand that you could have just looked that up if you were that concerned about it. See? So that's you're just barking up the wrong tree. That's not going to work for you. Because even though technically, in a very thin technical sense, they're different products, in reality, in a practical sense, they're not different. Okay, so let's look at that carefully. I got into this discussion. I wouldn't call it a conflict, a discussion with someone who was watching a video I was making about ales. And I mentioned Lord Chesterfield ale, and he said, well, you know, Lord Chesterfield ale from Yuengling is not an ale, it's a lager. And we got into this big discussion. I said, well, that bottle says ale, and the can says ale. But his contention was, no, it wasn't an ale. And I said, it has to, the legal disclosure has to describe what it is. That's not an option. It's not that you can just decide, I'm going to call it what I want to call it. No, actually, you can't do that. And I was reading the beer web glossary part of the Tax and Trade Bureau, and it talked about how each beer brand has to actually submit a formula for each beer brand. And it was like, why do you have to submit a formula? And they explained that you have to submit the formula, which we would call the recipe, for each beer brand. Now, I don't know if they actually look at it. They might stick it in a file cabinet or a drawer or a computer file and never paid in mind to it. But you have to do that. So I was thinking, I said, you know, if you read those regulations, it doesn't even mention the yeast. It says fermented at comparatively, interesting word, comparatively higher temperatures and exhibiting, I'm paraphrasing because I might not be using the exact term, but I'm using the correct idea of it, exhibiting the aromas and flavors generally associated with ale. Aromas and flavors generally associated with ale. Now, I've tasted Yuengling Lord Chesterfield ale many times. Does it taste like a lager? Does it have the aroma and flavors generally associated with lager? My contention would be no, it doesn't. Some people will flip their lid over Jack Daniels and bourbon. You could flip your lid and go crazy, but I know what I'm talking about. Okay. Uh, it's the same story with these. These are so difficult. It has corn flour. I don't know what kind of corn format they're using. I say it smell like corn flour. It has fermented grain and oh, I'm picking up that sherry again, and that's got me nervous. Okay, let's go over here. Now, price point, they about the same, so price point is irrelevant here. They run about the same price, so you're not going to save 25 cents probably bottle to bottle. I mean, you might if you waste $10 of effort to save 25 cents. Okay. Hmm. There's a lot less. This is interesting. There's a lot less aroma here, so that's got me also a bit off track. I'm not going to say this is a bold aroma and it's bountiful and it's amazing. I can't get over how amazing it is. No, but it's got something. But this one here, it's sort of basic bread. Okay. Now the reveal part, we hope. Um, this tastes familiar. It does taste familiar. And I do get, I was about to say something very stupid, like I do get a liquor aroma, a liquor flavor with it. That would make sense. No, but I get this like, but it's not a whiskey flavor. It's like oh, sherry type of thing, which also makes sense because, like I talked about earlier today, they traditionally, this is the government's words, traditionally use a blending sherry. I'm gonna have to look that up on the internet. Can you buy blending sherry? There's a general lack of flavor here. These are very different, and I would have never thought that. In fact, if you would have said that, I would have said, "Oh, you're wrong. You're wrong. You know, I'm right." But I'd have to eat those words because this one is very flat in the flavor. Obviously, they're both flat. They don't have carbonation, but it's flat in the flavor. I don't understand this. I do not understand what's happening at this particular moment. As I walk through the halls of karma, um, I'm vexed, perplexed, and otherwise confused. Um, I don't mind the flavor on the right. I just don't see where it's a whole lot happening. But I know both of these are kind of, you heard what I say, kind of like they ain't, you know. Low shelf. Although actually I bought this one and it was on the mid shelf, which I couldn't understand. That store is kind of different though. They the way they put their stuff on the shelf, I'm like, I don't know if that really belongs up there. But you do you. Okay, this one clearly has a lot more flavor. Is it because they're adding natural flavoring? It could be. It could be. What are the flavorings? I don't know. It's like rum extract. That sounds mad. Um, I think that actually would be allowed though. If it was natural rum extract, as bizarre as that sounds. Um, like molasses, sticky toffee pudding. No, I'm not even joking. It's got. Whoa! What are you doing? with this. Liquor enthusiast says, "Hello, RJT. Hello to you, liquor enthusiast." I don't want to get it wrong. Oh, I did realize I have another Kentucky blended whiskey, and I found this earlier this year. Now I was shocked by that. Kentucky Gold. New bottle, too. Now, the last time I found Kentucky Gold, it was Kentucky Gold with a small description, American blended whiskey with natural flavors. I said, uh-oh, that's the DSS. But here I go to Star earlier this year. This is only 2025. And I'm looking, and they got right on the shelf, I got the bottle, Kentucky Gold, Kentucky blended whiskey, 80% grain spirits, 20% straight whiskey, aged 3 years. That's not a DSS. I said, woof, what's going on, Heaven Hill? Why are you doing this to me, Heaven Hill? Like Archie Bunker said, I didn't mean no harm. I didn't mean no harm. All right. Hope this Thursday evening finds you well, Jay, says Jason Wickham. It is, actually, so far. SG says, do you like Old Smoky moonshine? Well, I have to admit, I've never had it, but I see it selling like fireworks. It's just on fire, at the store. So I'm sure it's very good. I like the apple pie and the blue raz that I'm drinking at the moment. I'm enjoying this VS with a Tecate myself. Now, what VS are you drinking? Bobby D says, cheers all. Educated man says, right now I got James Gin American. All right. Anyway. There's sort of like a little caramel. It's like a creme brulee type of thing, and that's stretching it. But I think this is the Seagram's 83, and it is, and it is, and it is, and. So, did the addition of flavoring help this product? Well, I don't know because I never had it without the flavoring, obviously, but I would like to. But they're not going to sell an unplugged version for any of these, I guess. But wish they would. But it seems to have helped it. At least I'm tasting the final product. Yeah, is it going to catch on and become popular and survive? I would say no. I'm thinking it's probably going to get discontinued. I mean, to go in one store and they yanked it all off the shelf and they marked it down to like 10% of the, well, not 10%, but very low. I mean, very low. They probably lost money on it, but it's like, it ain't helping them sitting on the shelf. But yes, you can sell liquor for below cost in Louisiana within some legal parameters, but you can do it. Talk to a distributor. He said we do it all the time within those parameters. Well, I mean, let's think about it. They've never promoted it. They've never even acknowledged it. They just stick it on the shelf and let it stay there. No sales, no nothing. So they deserve it. Now look at Seagram's VO. Oh, well, I mean, I see an ad in the paper every week for Seagram's VO. This week at Rouse's, Seagram's VO for whatever price. Next week, this week at Winn-Dixie, get Seagram's VO. Oh, it seems like they take turns. I think the stores do secretly conspire, but I can't prove it. But and I don't care if they do it. But and then it'll be Seagram's 7 Crown. That's from Diageo, different company, same name, different company, same thing. Always be promoting it. Seagram's Gin, they do promote that from time to time. And the vodka, which I need to buy the updated version. Need to, you heard that? Of the vodka. And because now it's 6 times distilled, so they've changed the recipe, the formula. But this thing, they never promoted it, ever. They just stuck it there. And in the store I'm talking about had it in the Canadian section. And I told the store, I said, why you got this in the Canadian section? Well, it's Seagram's. They told me this. Well, it's Seagram's. I said, you didn't look at the label? It says American. I said, look at the back of the bottle. Oh, Louisville, Kentucky. I said, thank you. I said, but I don't care where y'all put it. Y'all can put it in the Japanese whiskey section. But I'm saying, and I was very kind about it when I broached the topic. I said, why is that in the Canadian section? They got a little jump back on me, like, well, I said, well, hey. But then all of a sudden, it was in the American section. And then it was in the discount closeout buggy due to probably me being the only person that ever bought it. Bobby D says, I'm a new fan of Woodford Reserve. Oh, yeah, that's a great quality product. Tom said, I picked up some Seagram 7 Crown last night and also a new bottle of Jack Daniel's Old No. 7. 2 winners. That Seagram 7 is pretty good, neat, says Tom, but I'm going to try it in a 7-Up and Coke as well. Okay. Jason Whitcomb says, I walked by Seagram's 83. I hardly noticed it. Well, you and everybody else in the world. But yeah, the 7 Crown flies off the shelf. They're selling that all day long. They're selling this never day long. But you know what? I don't worry about these products. I don't concern myself with it. Well, considering it's not my problem, I didn't make the product. I mean, I like them, I like to try them, but I'm not going to get like invested in it. I don't get invested in a product. I don't get invested in a football team or a basketball team or a baseball team. I follow them. I watch them. I say, oh, you think that was holding? I don't see that, but that's what they called it. You know what I mean? I don't get upset about it. I think certain things are appalling, like things that happen in the game, but if they lose, I don't worry about it. Now, when I was a little kid, or a teenager, yeah, I was invested in it then, but I was young. I didn't understand. Now I'm not young and I do understand. All right. But that being said, is there anything objectionable about the Beams 8-star? No, I don't think there's anything objectionable about it. Bobby D says, I'm giving my age away, but Seagram 7 and 7 is a great drink. I talked to some guys that are now old. They were born in the 1940s. All right, these 2 guys I talked to, born in the 1940s. I asked each one of them, I said, you ever heard of Seagram 7 and 7? They jumped back, looked at me like I was crazy. Both of them said, who had never heard of that? They said, we used to drink that all the time. Now, that was in 1975, not 2025. They said, everybody used to drink that. You notice they said, used to drink that. Neither one of these guys drink anymore. Well, I think they had too much of a heyday back in their heyday, and they can't drink anymore. Hate to say that, but it's the truth, A little bit too much fun in the sun. But in 1975, they were definitely listening to what the man said. Okay, I used to get invested in the Steelers when I was a kid, but that was way back in the Franco Harris and Bradshaw era. Yeah, I know. I remember those days. Bobby D says 1968 is in the house. Love those heydays. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to talk about it, But so, like, if you ask a person today, just a person at 20 or 30 today, you like 7 and 7? they're gonna look at you like, what is that? Some kind of like Tinder code? They say, I'm not into that stuff. It's just like, well, I'm talking about a cocktail. But if you ask anybody that's like 55 to 85, they're going to say, well, of course, everybody knows what that is. It's like Carter loves car. Like if you tell a young person, oh, you have more excuses than Carter has liver pills, they're going to give you a blank stare. They'll give you that Generation Z stare or whatever they call that. But my grandmother and all of them, they used to say, you have more excuses than Carter has liver pills. They understood that. I didn't even understand that. Or they would say, now we cooking with gas. So a lot of these expressions go by the wayside. Now we cooking with gas. So do these products go by the wayside? Well, that's debatable. I would say for Seagram's 83, I would say demise probable. For the United States. In Canada, no way. But for the United States, demise probable. Beams 8-star. Oh, well, it'll probably hang around. Not that it gets any promotion, nor has it ever. You say, well, it gets no promotion. You just said Seagram's 83 got no promotion and it's dying on the vine. Yeah, but think about it. Although the Seagram's name is well known, so that's my point I'm about to make is kind of invalid because Seagram's 83 Seagram's not 83, but Seagram's is a well-known name. Most people think it's still a company. They have the malt liquors, the malt beverages, those pre-mixed cocktails, the doggone gin, the vodka, the Canadian VO, this thing here. And I've seen Seagram's apple whiskey, Seagram's black Canadian whiskey. So it's out there. But, so I don't know. I don't know why this one didn't really run. But Beams 8-star, well, what's running that one. The magical name Beam. Now, you say, well, the liquor snobs hate Beam. If you say the word Jim Beam, they don't sleep at night. That's true. But the average people, they admire Beam. They're like, oh, yeah, that's, it's kind of funny, like a dichotomy, The regular people, you say, I got some Jim Beam. Oh, yeah, it's going to be a fun night. Yeah, we're going to play Scrabble. I got my money, whatever they do. Then the whiskey snob would say Jim Beam, and then they get very angry. And then they're going to give you a long lecture on Jim Beam and why you should not drink it. And then you will look at them like you are so happy that you don't hang out with them. Okay, but anyway, so I think, honestly, in this challenge, which I'm a little shocked about it, but in this challenge, Seagram's 83 was the clear and present winner. He said they cheated to add flavoring. They might have cheated. The Beams 8-star may have flavoring as well, but like I said, if they go underneath the line, if they go underneath that cutoff, they don't have to put it on the label. But oh well, hey, like I said, not my issue. It tastes better, so I'm calling it, and I'm saying it tastes better. My friend David thought it tasted better. He was definitely hostile to Beams 8-star, and I don't mean just a little hostile, like very hostile. But I gave him a bottle of this, and he said he liked it a lot. So that's two people. Okay. So yes, Seagram's is around in flavors for the new kids. It's like Michelob is around only as ultra for the kids. Yeah, because Michelob Original and Michelob Amberbach is a relic. That's a skeleton in the closet. I saw some Michelob Amberbach last week. Actually on Tuesday this week. I would be surprised if they sold one 12-pack a month of that stuff. They already done killed Amber original Michelob, but they probably sell 12 packs a day of Michelob Ultra. They probably, that same store probably sells 12 packs a day of Michelob Ultra, and the 24 packs and the 15s and the 18s and the singles and the tall cans. Just goes to show you. Now, does Anheuser-Busch InBev care? Why would they care? They used to sell Michelob. It was big 30 years ago. Then they came in with Michelob Ultra. Once Michelob Ultra hit the market, Michelob Original began to fade, and fade fast from my recollection. If I make $1 from Michelob, but then a year later I make $1.25 for Michelob Ultra, why would I care? I'm still making the money from the products. These companies not worried about what's on the shelf. They're not worried about legacies. You worried about that. They're not worried about it. The money's coming in. Oh, in 1988, Budweiser was the best-selling American beer, and Bud Light was way behind. Okay, now Bud Light is big, and Bud Light has taken a back seat. Doesn't matter. All they did was switch positions. It's still money coming into the same company. Budweiser took a backseat to Bud Light. It's underling. Doesn't matter. The money's coming to the same people. You get it? Okay, let's look at the last comments. Regular Michelob is not to be found, says Jason. That's because it was discontinued last year. I hate to tell you this, but it was discontinued. I hand it to Anheuser-Busch InBev. They're smart with the marketing. Well, not always, but usually. They had a little mishap 2 years ago, but we won't mention that, even though I just mentioned that. But we all aware of that. It should have stuck with the frogs, you know. Wasn't Coors Light in the top 3? Well, it's still up there. I mean, Coors Light is huge. I mean, they'll fluctuate year to year. I mean, these things will change position every few years. Bud Light, Coors Light, Miller Lite, Michelob Ultra, Busch Light, and so forth. They'll kind of switch positions year to year or over a number of years, but it doesn't matter because it's all up there. It's up there. Now, is regular Busch popular in Louisiana? Certainly is. But Busch Light rules it. I mean, Busch Light they got it in tall cans, pint cans, 12-ounce cans, 12-ounce bottles. Obviously, you could order a draft, a keg of it. No one questions that. You could order a keg of Busch Light. It's going to come from Houston. Doesn't matter. It's going to come overnight. We're talking about 5 to 6 hours. That's not any kind of issue. So Busch Light is, in some ways, Busch Light is the king of beer around here. You would not believe it. Well, you might believe it, but it's beginning to rival Bud Light. But once again, why would the company care? It's their products. It's coming to them. I always hear people say, bring back the Budweiser Clydesdales. I don't hear many people saying, bring back blank. Yeah. Well, they have the Clydesdales. They're every year in New Orleans at St. Patrick's Day Parade, Mardi Gras parades. They always have the Clydesdales. They're still around. Okay, well, that's enough blabbing. So yeah, either one. If you want to pay a little bit and you might like it, buy it. No real risk factor. Is really no risk factor. So I bought these two. They were not sent to me. I bought them with my own money. I am favorable towards them, either one, but I do prefer the Seagram's 83. So there you go. Now, what's going to happen with Kentucky Gold? Well, I think that Kentucky Gold might not measure up, but we'll see. It probably will not measure up. No knock against Heaven Hill, but Heaven Hill is no bean. You know what I mean? Jelly bean. But I mean Heaven Hill is nice, but they're not Jim Beam. All right. Anyway, y'all take too soon. Too soon. No, I'm just trying to avoid the. All right, y'all take care now. Bye bye. I speak in code. I speak in code.